guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well and having a fantastic day. So guys, welcome to those of you who are new to my channel, and to those of you who are always supporting me, I thank you very much. So today we have a really beautiful quilt. It's going to be a scrappy one. Let me show it to you what it actually looks like. It's not a huge one, it's a small one. I'm actually going to put it up into my sewing room. I'm going to replace the one on the wall because I tend to replace them sometimes. It gives me inspiration. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to hold it up and I'm going to disappear, guys, and then I'm going to reappear. There we go. Here I am again. So as I said, it's made of scraps. I have completed a pattern for it so that it just saves me time having to repeat the steps all the time. You can use ordinary fabric for this one if you don't want to use scraps, but I think using the scraps really uses up and I think it helps the pattern much better, to be honest. So it's quite easy peasy, lemon squeezy, okay, all of that, you know, I'm messing about. So this is what we're going to do today. Now in the video, what I would say is that I did mention I was in a little bit of an accident. I am okay now, so try not to worry about it too much. I was just in a little bit of a little bump and it scared me a little bit. I didn't go to work that day. I was a little bit freaked out about it. It's the first time I've been in an accident, actually. So yeah, so I came home and I did a little bit of quilting in actually making this particular quilt online. When I say online, to share with you, so I was recording. So if my tone sounds a little bit repetitive or a little bit shaky, that's the reason why. I think I realized I didn't really sound myself and I had to mention that. So just to let you know, but I'm fine now. My car is not, though. I'll show you a little clip of what it looks like. I call her she's my baby. She's going to go in for repairs in the next 2 weeks or so. That's her appointment date, and hopefully I get her back pretty soon. But yeah, but other than that, I'm fine, and I'm looking outside because somebody's walking. I'm so damn nosy. So yes, everything else is good. Okay. Let me take you through how I did this. It's a really simplistic quilt, and stay till the end to actually see the full view of the quilt, and hopefully you'll be encouraged to make one. As I said, it's scraps. I mean, what else? What else, guys? What else? Scraps is beautiful. It's beautiful, you know. So I'm being an idiot. All right, guys, have fun. Let's get started. Hey, guys. So today we're going to be making a scrap quilt. Now, before I make a scrap quilt, I tend to, when I'm finished a quilt, one of my sort of regime or exercises is to make, I've got my bin in front of me here. One of the things I tend to do is to sew blocks together, just randomly. And when I say blocks, I mean little pieces of scraps. So whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. I will just sit and sew something. But we're not making this kind of quilt today. I'm not taking small pieces of fabrics and sewing them together. That is a bit time consuming. However, that is not my aim. Okay, my aim is to use up the large pieces of scrap fabrics. Now I usually acquire this by when I cut the quilt. So after I've made my quilt top and I've basted it together, usually there's excess. As you know, you need to have excess around the perimeter of the square quilt or the rectangular quilt, whatever shape it is, and you must have those inches around it so that when you're quilting, you know, even if the quilt shifts, you're not off. All right, which has happened to me in the past. So we're using all of the excess edges from the quilt, so the basting, extra, whatever, okay, we're going to be using. Now I will be cutting from them into rectangles, so I'm going to get as much rectangles as I possibly have. So I'll show you a piece of that, so what I'm talking about. So pieces like this, okay, and if you follow my channel, you'll probably see me, I actually use this as backing, so all the backing excess. All right, so I will be cutting them into rectangles. I'll give you all the details in the pattern, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so my table here is a bit of a mess where I have loads of it on. When I am making a scrap quilt, I'm telling you, my room is messy. It's really messy because there is so much pieces of fabric around, and I'm really trying to get rid of these. To be honest, I can sort of store the small pieces quite easily, but these big bulk blah blah. I'll try that again. Those big ones, the bulky ones, they're the ones that take up the space. So I've got a few of them because, as you know, I make a quilt quite regularly. So let me show you what cuts I am working with and how I'm designing this scrappy quilt. And for those of you wondering, why do I use this? Well, ideally I could cut them into small pieces, excuse me, but I don't want to do that. I prefer to use this, so I like to use this so that I can make bigger quilt blocks quite easily. My husband is calling me as usual. Alright guys, so you need some rectangles, as I was saying, and the rectangles or the color scheme I'm working in is light and darks, which is the usual anyway for quilting. Okay, so I have my measurement here. I'm just going to make sure it's correct, which I don't think it is. I'm just going to turn this around and get the measurement correct and then start cutting. Yeah, definitely wasn't correct. So yeah, it's a little bit over. So do that there. I'm just trying to measure all sides because the cut here, it's a little bit on the wonky side. So when I say wonky, it's not straight. So I'm just going to make sure that the rectangle is nice and straight, hence the reason why I keep turning it around. So if I got it in that position, I don't want to touch it, so I'm just going to turn it around and then cut. I think that's it there, lovely. Alright, so now that I have cut that, I have been cutting, as I said, lights and darks. Excuse me. Alright guys, I'm a little bit nervy because I literally just had a car accident, and I'm a little bit shaken, so I just thought I'll come and do some quilting. So if I seem a little bit, what's the word? You know, pausing, just bear with me. That's the reason why, okay? Not my brain hasn't, or my nerves hasn't settled down as yet. So, but I'm okay, just a little bit, not my usually bubbly self. So I'm just trying to do some quilting so that I can just be a little bit more calmer. All right, so with the rectangles now, this one is pretty light. What you need to be mindful of is that the way in which you are going to cut the fabric, all right? So, and it can get a little bit tricky, right? So it's very important that you cut it in a particular way, because if you don't, what will happen is that you will have two of the similar cuts, and I'm putting the cuts back together so that I can demonstrate to you exactly what's what. All right, so I have one cut going that way, and I think I need the other cut going the other way. So let me drag this out a little bit. Excellent. So these are my rectangles here, and I've literally cut, so these are the two darks I'm working with. So I've cut it this way, so like a house. All right, so let me just draw that down. Of course there will be a pattern, so I'm cutting it that way. All right, so that's so the tip of a house that way from point to point. Okay. All right guys, so this is the blocks laid out. As you can see, I've literally got them all over the place. I've got some on the floor over there, and I've got a couple right next to me here. Okay, so I need to add fabric there, which I don't know where I've done with it. Okay, there it is. So if I add this one here, now you can keep to a color scheme if you want to, but as you know, it's scraps that I'm using. So I've already sewn these two together, so that's what it would look like there. So very realistic and simplistic. It's not difficult. Okay, so that is it really there. That's one block. That's another block there. And I've just spaced myself about because the blocks do come up big, and that's what it looks like. I do feel though that once we sew them together, you're going to get a secondary pattern from them, okay? But notice again that I have lights and darks together. Notice with this one here, it's the same fabric in the middle, so the diamond is a lot more prominent. I do like this block here with the different colors together. All right, so let's go back to the table. As you can see, all of my mess underneath there. So again, 2 different colors on this one and the lights at the end. This is another one here. Okay, this is another one here. This is the one we just made together. It does look like a kite sometimes. And then there is this one here. Okay, this one not too sure because the colors are so, the patterns or the prints on this one is so similar, so I'm not sure about it. So what I'm going to do now is sew them together, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Once I've done that, I don't think I'll be adding borders. I think it will be a border-free quilt. Well, we'll see once I've sewn it together, and then we'll take it from there. So let's go over to the sewing machine and get that done. Okay guys, I have all of my cuts here. Now I don't know at this stage how much of the blocks or the pieces of fabric I have cut to make my blocks. I shouldn't call them blocks yet because they aren't. I haven't, but once I've sewn together, then obviously I would know once I make my block. So the concept here is to chain piece so that life is easier. So as you saw previously, I swapped one on top, and all I'm simply going to do is to just take it and sew and line it up. Now, this is cut on the bias, okay, because obviously we cut right down the top from point to point. I was going to zoom in, but I think I would leave it. Looking at the camera, I think you've got a good angle there where you can see. All right, so I'm just lining it up, and I'm just going to Alexa just piped up. I don't know why. Oh, and there she goes again. She's listening to my conversation. So we wouldn't call her name. So yes, I'm just going to line up. I've taken the light off from the sewing machine so you can see it much more clearly. Excuse my squeaky stool. I keep meaning to sort it out, but I never do. The only time I remember it is when I come on the camera, and then that's when I'm aware of the squeakiness. Other than that, oh, doesn't bother me. So forgive me, guys. All right, so just line it up and basically just sew. Just try not to stretch, as I said, because it's on the bias. We don't want to do that. You shouldn't really need to stretch it, to be honest. It should lay nicely, and you just simply sew. That's it. It's a very quick cut, stack, sew. That's simply it. And just get the next one, front sides together, and just keep chain piecing it all together. And it should take you roughly about 15 minutes to finish all of this. Obviously, I wouldn't do all of that on camera with you because someone is going to say to me, Karen, why didn't you fast forward it? And there you go. Did you hear my whinging voice? Karen. So I wouldn't do that all on the camera, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say to you here. Just line it up, so, and easy peasy. I just love making scrap quilts. They're so beautiful and simple to make. I think for me, one of the reasons why I do it is just so easy that, you know, you don't have to think about, you know, making sure the seams match. And there's no matching seams with this one. If you get it off seam, hey, trust me, don't worry about it. Some of you worry about things that are not important. Seriously, matching the seams is not important. I used to fuss about that when I first started to quilt. And after a while, I was like, why the heck am I worrying about that? If it's slightly off, who gives a flying foot? No one. Because at the end of the day, you don't see those missed things. It's only us see it. The receiver down, the person who is buying the quilt down, they're not worried about that. All they see is your hard work, your efforts, and the beauty of the design and the fabrics. That's all they see. So when you fuss about little things that's not important, you're actually devaluing your work. And that's one of the things I've learned about quilting. Quilting is not about devaluing your work, because this is all of you. This is all of you. So when you put it down, you're putting down yourself. So don't do that, guys. Honestly, don't. You will have a much better time enjoying your quilting process if you eliminate that from your quilting library, I should say. So I'm guessing you have gotten the idea of how to do this. And if you notice, I've already folded them over, so it's easy just to pick it up, she says, and start sewing. So really, it's, you know, it's an easy peasy. I am looking forward to see what this comes out like. I have a vision in my head, which I always tend to. And I think that's one of the great things for me, for making a scrap quilt with bigger cuts, is because I can then design my own sort of, you know, block shape with it, rather than using small cuts. Because when you use small cuts, it's just pieces of fabric all over, which is not a problem because that's the element of the quilt, isn't it? However, with bigger blocks, you can now, or bigger pieces, I should say, of fabric, you can now make your own design from it. So I'm looking forward to see how this comes out. I do have an idea in my head what I think it would look like, but yeah, it's going to be okay. I'm confident of that. So again, chain piece, guys, it's a lot more quicker and things get done. I'm using black thread here only because I had black thread on the sewing machine before. So right, so this is what it's going to look like. All right, so obviously once you sew them back together, this is what it's going to look like. So I had a piece here. So I had a plan. So when I get to the stage, that's when I stop and say, okay, guys, we're going to move on to the next stage now. So that's where we're at. So this is what it's going to look like. All right. So we're going to have a few of these and we're going to then put them together to form something. I'm hoping we get at least 2 layouts from this. All right. Let's get started on the next stage. Okay guys, so I've shown you how the blocks were intending to be laid out before I stitch them together. Now before I do the final layout, I just want to give you a few ideas of what you can do. So if you wanted to, you can just do a chevron pattern. So I've sewn 2 of the blocks together and I've taken the same opposite 2 and you can do them like that if you wanted to. Obviously we are working with this pattern here and I think that looks fine. That's the most simplistic and you don't have to worry about doing much about that, all right? What you can also do if you wanted to be a little bit more creative, you can go ahead and do a star pattern. So you can do like a 4-point star with it. And obviously you'll need some extra plain fabrics, some background fabric for this one if you decide to go with a pattern like this. So you can do that, put a plain fabric in the middle. Obviously that fabric size will be the size of your blocks, and there and there and there. And that's a lovely 4-point star, and this will make a very large quilt very quickly. All right, so that's just a few ideas for you. Nevertheless, I'm going to go back to what we initially decided on, and that's simply working with these blocks here. Okay. Once you've sewn them together, you'll need to trim, and again the pattern will give you all the details for that. And then now we're going to lay the whole thing out, and let's see if we get any alternative pattern with the whole layout as a diamond block. Looking at it from this this view, it looks okay. However, I do feel that I can probably trade these two pieces around and possibly move this one here. I mean, there is no right or wrong. It's really what you feel is the best possible solution. And I think I will bring this one up here because these two are quite close together. Now move this one. I mean, it doesn't make much of a huge difference, but I'm trying to move around the more floral prints around, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. It is what it is. These two solid blocks, I think I will probably put one probably there, put that there. I wouldn't want them next to each other. But it's all right. You do get a stripy pattern going that way also. But I'm going to sew it together. I don't think I'm going to add any borders. I'm going to leave it as is. You know I always say that and then I add a border. I will leave it as is and then I'm moving from there. But a-okay so far. All right, let's get started on sewing it together. All right, guys, this quilt is now completed. It measures 42 by 53. So it's a beautiful little small quilt, perfect for your sewing room and full of scraps. Now you can see the pattern, can you? Now with all of the pieces, you get a nice little diamond. So I'll show you the blocks and then I'll show you where the extension of the blocks make another diamond, which is pretty nifty, to be honest. All right, so this is your block right here. So this is your block, these four pieces together, but because you've added another block there, you get another pattern right in the middle there. Isn't that nifty? Pretty cool, pretty easy. As I said in the introduction, you can actually use ordinary fabrics for this. Any fabrics you sort of want to showcase, isn't it? So I've given an example of that. So here you can see I use a solid altogether. So when I say solid, I didn't mix it like this one here. And I did that there again. If you look carefully, you will actually see that this is a Christmas fabric. And if you stand back, you wouldn't really notice that, wouldn't you? But I think this has come out really beautifully. Really, really nice. I use a meandering quilting pattern for this one. I just think it looks really gorgeous. It was really easy to quilt. No issues at all. Very quickly, actually. So really, really lovely, guys. Really, really lovely. I'm really pleased with the outcome. You can, of course, go nice and big for this one. Well, what I mean by that, you can change the size of the blocks. I'm giving you lots of ideas here. And you can use, so the size of the blocks will give you a bigger quilt. Actually, because at the end of the day, remember, I use scraps. So if you don't want to use scraps and you think, oh, you know what, I've got the perfect fabric for a quilt like this, you're on the money. Absolutely beautiful. Now at the back, I also did some scraps as well. So I had some leftover fabric that I particularly use sometimes just for backing, and so I use that on there. Now before I turn it over, on the binding I had some spare fabric, and I used sort of light fabric. I think it's a daisy print on there to actually frame the whole thing, but I think it looks really gorgeous. Now I was in two minds whether or not to make the border a little bit bigger, but I think it was fine for the size of the quilt. It wasn't a large quilt, as you can tell, you know, but I think, you know, when I made it, or while I was making it, I was really sort of picturing putting it on my wall, in my sewing room. So hence the reason why I didn't really want to make it too big. You can see some of the quilting patterns there, and you can see where I've slightly crossed over. I can tell you what happened there as well. I was watching YouTube. And so yeah, guys, a lot of my mistakes happen when I'm watching YouTube and sewing as well. So that ain't gonna change. I watch more YouTube than I watch normal TV. Does anybody else do that? Let me know down below. Or am I just the only one? But yeah, you know, I really enjoyed making this. It's really quick. I'll definitely say that. Really quick. Easy, using up scraps. It can use a lot of scraps. I could have gone bigger, but I have another idea in mind for scraps, so I wanted to save some of my scraps again to make another one. So I think my next quilt is going to be a scrappy quilt. So on the back, I use this fabric here. And I'm going to try so I can get it over easily, very quickly. Oh, that was not too bad, Karen. I love this fabric here. I bought this fabric here on sale, and this is the last bit of it, this one here. I actually used it in the previous quilts as well, and I'll do that link for you so you can see it. But that's the back, guys, and you can actually see the quilting as well. Really lovely. All right. Hey guys, so I just wanted to show you what the quilt looks like on the wall. But before I do that, this is the one I had up there. And just so that you know, guys, this also is scraps. This is called my pumpkin seed scrappy quilt. So don't throw those scraps away, guys. They can come in very easily to make a beautiful free quilt. I would link this for you at the end of the video so that you can just click it basically. But for now, let's look at this beauty on the wall. Doesn't she look stunning? It is just so amazing that the diamonds form a secondary diamond pattern in the middle. Just so lovely. And if you look very carefully, you can actually see larger diamonds. It's so brilliant, as well as X's from the quilt. One thing I love about quilting is that the image is in the eye of the person looking at it. Very much like art, isn't it? I always say that quilting is art. What you see belongs to the person staring at it. Right guys, so that's enough of me talking to you. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please make sure that you check out the pattern. Let me know what you think of the tutorial, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now. Happy quilting. Thank you so much for choosing Crafty Quilting Designs today, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. Bye for now, guys. See you then. Bye.